More on this news, we'll bring in Byron Donalds. He's a member of the Florida State House of Representatives and a Republican candidate for Congress. Representative, good to see you. I'd like to get you to weigh in on this. The president sends out this tweet questioning delaying the election. And the media has a frenzy with it. It becomes the headline from yesterday, and here it is. This one tweet drove the news cycle at the end there. He's saying delay the election until people can properly, securely, and safely vote. He's posing this question, but makes it very clear at the press conference that I want to vote on time, but I want it to be an instant result, or almost instant. I've been covering politics for quite some time. You usually get about 97% of precincts reporting. You know where the election's going. It could be different this year. Do you have concern about mail-in voting versus absentee voting or voting in person?
I have a big concern about it, especially when you're dealing with many states that don't really take care with who's actually voting. They don't check identification. They don't make sure that the people who are casting ballots are citizens of the United States who are duly authorized to vote in our elections. So I think the president's making very valid points on that. With massive mail-in voting where everybody gets a ballot, even though they may not be registered or even though they're not requesting a ballot. And I think that's the key thing. If people are requesting a ballot by mail, that's something different. What you have in some states is they're trying to make a unilateral decision to just send ballots to everybody. And that can create major issues from a fraud perspective. Here in Florida, we actually have some of the best laws in the country about mail-in balloting. Citizens have to request it. You have to actually sign your ballots. And then the signed ballot has to be compared to your signature at the Supervisor of Elections office. That's how we manage that process in Florida. And I would hope that the other 49 states have similar provisions.
Why do you think it is, Representative, that there's so much divide between the Democrats and Republicans? It almost seems that one, again, wants voter ID. The other one does not, wants everyone to just mail out ballots. States mail out the ballots and then they fill them out. Why is there so much divide over this? It seems to be there's only one party concerned about possible voter fraud. The other one, no concern.
Well, that's simply because the Democrats want to win at all costs. I mean, if you even look at how they pass their talking points between one another, how they pass it through members of the media, their desire is to maintain power and get political power. They have one goal, and it's been the same goal since the 2016 election, and that's defeating Donald Trump. And so their concern is not making sure that the franchise of voting is protected for American citizens. Their only concern is making sure they get the most possible boxes checked for their preferred candidate. But that's not what the rule of law prescribes. The rule of law, especially in voting, is to protect every American citizen, whether they're Republican or Democrat, so that their vote is one vote and it doesn't get skewed because you're finding all these random ballots that just simply pop up. I think it's important to note that we do have this issue happen every single election cycle, whether it's Fort Lauderdale here in Florida in Broward County, or whether it's in Chicago, where you have these elections where ballots just show up after the date. There's no custody for these ballots, but they end up through a legal process, through lawyers, frankly, arguing back and forth. These ballots end up getting counted in an election. I think the president and many Republicans are very concerned about that. And so we want to make sure is that the vote of American citizens is one vote, one citizen, and we have an accurate count who's going to be the next president of the United States, or frankly, anybody else who's running in these elections.
Representative, another thing that made headlines yesterday, rightfully so, some sad news, the passing of Herman Cain, a former presidential candidate back in 2012. He died at the age of 74 years old. In fact, you sent out a tweet about Herman. You said, "Today the Lord called Herman Cain home. He was a mentor, patriot, and embodiment of American dream. He fought for liberty, justice, and opportunity for all, inspiring people like myself to get involved. I volunteered on his campaign in 2011. He will be dearly missed." What kind of interaction did you have with Mr. Cain, and what are you remembering today?
Well, my first interaction with him was actually he came down to Naples, Florida, and he gave a speech. I think it was before he launched his presidential campaign. You know, and as a young African American, it was really inspiring to see such an accomplished man decide to leave the private sector and run for the presidency of the United States. And so that's one of the things that got me off the couch and really got me started to being engaged in politics and caring about the future of the country, and not just caring about it, but really engaging in the political process. I volunteered on his campaign down here in Collier County. I love 9/11. 999. I was all on board. And so, you know, to get the news yesterday of his passing really struck me, because it was the first campaign that I was excited about, the first one that I volunteered my time. And so, you know, my thoughts and my prayers go out to his family. It's a tremendous loss, not just for his family, but for the country.
Absolutely. Many are remembering him today. No word yet on funeral arrangements. Of course, Newsmax will bring the first to bring you that. Before you go, I've got to ask you about what now is Hurricane Isaias. I know that you guys are bracing. There's some watches. I don't believe it's in effect for Collier County, but possibly your friends on the East Coast. What is Florida doing to prepare? Because this hurricane seems to be getting stronger. It's at a Cat 1 at last check, possibly a Cat 2 when it makes landfall with you.
Well, I think, first of all, I think Governor DeSantis is going to do a tremendous job of marshaling all of our resources to help what looks like the people on the East Coast, Fort Lauderdale, Jupiter, Florida, and so on. The second thing is we want to always make sure we're prepared. In the Florida legislature, we always pass every single year a tax-free holiday associated with getting hurricane supplies. The number one thing I would tell our citizens, make sure you get supplies, make sure you get batteries, flashlights, water. We've been through this before in Florida. We'll get through this one too. But just be prepared, be vigilant. Even in spite of everything going on with COVID, you have to make sure that you have everything you need to get through the next couple of days. But I think we'll get through it, and we'll be a stronger Florida like we always have.
Yeah, hurricanes, no stranger to Florida, and vice versa. Best of luck to you. Byron Donalds, thanks so much. You have a good weekend. We'll see you again.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Anytime. Coming up.